Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Really excited. Looking forward to Caitlin's webinar. I'm sure you guys are as well. Um, she is somebody I've worked with for a couple of years now, and I'm involved in her core interpreters program. And I think it's a really wonderful program. And I know that she's going to kind of talk about it. And just want to encourage you guys, if you're thinking about mentoring, or are being mentored, think of this as a possible program to kind of help guide you on that path. So, um, Caitlin Ramsey Wolford is a nationally certified interpreter. Um, she also has a degree in English and Sign Language Interpreting, and she's the founder of Core Interpreters, which is a program that helps mentor interpreters. So, interpreters that are coming out of ITPs and the like, to help them become certified, develop their skills, and to add to our pool of wonderful interpreters to serve the deaf community. So, I'm really excited to welcome Caitlin, and I hope that you guys enjoy her presentation as well. All right, Caitlin, they're all yours.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Hope you are all doing well from wherever you sit in the world. I know that Hello Interpreters has a wide reach, so welcome to everyone. I am based in Washington, D.C., and I love it here. It's a wonderful place to live. As Sean just explained, I do have an advanced degree from Gallaudet University, which happens to be the only deaf university in the world. And it has given me so much because I went to Gallaudet. I graduated back in 2015 with my master's, and then from there started freelance interpreting, and it's been quite the journey ever since. Part of why I give an explanation of my background and education is because I think it's important as interpreters that we have a larger discussion about what it looks like to enter this field. So I think with interpreting, oftentimes we're freelancing. There are some situations where I do know people go staff, but I would say probably 50%, if not more, of interpreters, whether you be spoken language or sign language, are freelancing. And it's really difficult to get your feet on the ground and then feel like you can be successful in this field. So I think there is crossover and there's a lot of cross pollination between spoken language and sign language. So if you see me moving my hands a little bit today and you see me signing, that's because I'm a sign language interpreter. So I tend to lean towards signing what I'm saying sometimes. So I apologize in advance. And for the people who are spoken language interpreters, I have had pretty frequent interactions with spoken language interpreters, but I wouldn't say that I am as well versed in the experiences that you all have in comparison to sign language interpreting. I do know a lot about, consecutive interpreting, simultaneous interpreting. I know that there are, note-taking systems that are shared between. I know that mentorship is also something that a lot of spoken language interpreters are also struggling with because I've been told that. So hopefully today's presentation will be able to give everyone who is an interpreter in general the opportunity to see what could be possible and what it could look like to support people who are coming into the field. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to finish an interpreter training program, whether it be a sign language interpreting training program or a formalized spoken language interpreting program. It just be an opportunity to show people what could be and what we are doing from the sign language interpreting community and how that can maybe be transferable into a spoken language scenario. So feel free to ask questions at any point. If I happen to miss your questions, I apologize in advance. I will have Sean or Izzy, who are wonderful people in the background, throw it up on the screen. So that will also kind of get my attention. I do intend on sharing a presentation today, so I will pull that up in a minute. At the end of the presentation, I'm going to ask for the audience participation. And what that will look like is resource sharing. So one of the big things that I believe in, just as a professional, I think every field could benefit from like a resource hub and having lots of resources available to you. And so the link that I'm going to share with you all towards the end of this presentation will give you an opportunity to put down resources that you have found helpful in your field. And it doesn't necessarily have to be specific to mentoring or a specific approach to mentoring. So that's the other thing I'd like to add is that your approach to mentoring might look very different than mine. That's okay. I think as long as we are trying things and we're really putting the effort forth to grow our field and do it in a way that is a healthy and collaborative manner, I think I'm all for it. So hear me out when I'm saying I don't necessarily want to prescribe to you how you should be mentoring. I do want you to bring the tools that you have in your tool belt to this conversation. Um, and I can give you what I have, and then you can give what you have, and then we can all work together. And so that becomes a shared, just collaborative method of how we can keep going forward. So going back to what I was saying, consider different resources that you might use with a mentee or with a mentor that have been helpful for you. So this could be books, this could be TED Talks, it could be um, webinars, it could be links, it could be all sorts of things that have been beneficial to you in a mentorship style relationship within your profession. So that is really what I'm looking for everyone to share at the end of today. So that link will be shared later, but I wanted to kind of give everyone a heads up because I know there's a couple people who probably prefer to like, if I'm going to participate, what am I participating doing? And that is what you'll be doing. So hopefully that's helpful. That's a little bit of a heads up for what's coming down the pike for this meeting today. Other than that, I think we're good. I'm going to go ahead and share screen now and we'll get started. Okay. So core, obviously, as you can see, we are predominantly focused on sign language interpreters. Now, we do have trilingual interpreters who are in the program and who've been through the program. We've had entire trilingual teams. Most of our trilingual interpreters, I would say, are Spanish speaking. So you're talking about spoken English, American Sign Language, and spoken Spanish. So those are the three predominantly trilingual interpreters that are, I would say, most prominent in the interpreting field here in the United States. Now, if you're in another location, obviously that would be completely different. But for the sake of this conversation, that is what I'm referring to when I say trilingual interpreters within CORE. This is our lovely logo. And so that's CORE. If you can tell, it's kind of like an abstract look to it. But that's our logo, and that's us, basically. So the mission of CORE is interpreters supporting interpreters. So again, this is a perfect situation when Sean asked me to be involved with this project that he's working on with Hello Interpreters. I was like, definitely, because spoken language interpreters are also experiencing this gap between entering this profession and getting the licensing, getting the certifications that you need in order to do this work. But then how do you bridge that gap from I have learned, I have the language, and now I've got to get this certification. And then you get that certification, it's like, check, I'm done. But that's not actually, you're just starting. And so I think it's important that we all acknowledge that that certification is just us building upon what our career will be from here on out. And that's one of the important things about CORE is that we're all supporting one another. And when I explain the actual structure of the program, you understand more of why support is so important. So this is the mission statement for us. It's, again, a team of sign language interpreters collaborating to make the field a better place for all through mentoring. So one of the goals here is that, and I've already mentioned it previously in the last 8 minutes that I've been sharing with you, everyone has something to offer. Even if you were in the role of a mentee in this program, we still believe that you as a mentee have something to offer to this program. So a mentee in CORE means someone who is very fresh, new to the field, green. And it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with age. It has to do with experience. So oftentimes people who are new to whatever work environment they are, they feel like they don't have as much to contribute because they don't know what they are or are not allowed to do or say, or, well, so much more because you've been here for 10 years. That's not necessarily true. People who are fresh out of an interpreting training program often have so much knowledge and experience and research and articles and things that they can share with folks who graduated 10, 20 years ago. So again, it's so important that we listen to everyone and give everyone an opportunity at the table, whether you are a mentor or a coach, which again, I'll explain what all this means later, but everyone has something to offer. And so that's really the collaborative relationship that we're looking to build here because we want to have that team mentality. So this is a picture of me. Hello. As I said before, I graduated from Gallaudet and started freelancing. Immediately felt that there's a big gap in our field within the sign language interpreting field. It felt like there were great interpreters. I'm surrounded by amazing interpreters, so much talent in this DC area. However, it felt like there was a lack of a structured support system to give everyone the support they need to keep going forward. And I was not alone in this, right? Like I started having conversations with people one to one, and I realized you have the same, oh, we all have the same shared experience. Now, in my conversations with spoken language interpreters, this also happens to be a trend that they've shared with me, that it feels isolating. It's very difficult to be a freelancer, I think, in any field, but I think it's specifically difficult with language because you're dealing with an environment where you're showing up, and I have access to all the information in the room because I know both of these languages. However, my place in this room creates often some awkward tension between the parties that I'm working with. And there's a power dynamic there, there's a language dynamic, there's so much that's happening. And then you leave, and the work that you did, the interpretation that you did in that room stays with those people, with both of those respective parties, but then you leave. So then what do you do if something traumatic happened? What do you do if things didn't go well, right? Because we're all human beings. Things will inevitably go badly. So what do you do when that happens? And then how do you leave that room and have a discussion or a debrief with a colleague when you're working alone all the time? Like, what do you do with that? And so that was immediately the first thing that I thought when I graduated was, is there anything out here that is looking to support the people who are going through what I'm going through? And that is how CORE came about. Um, if you are in the scenario right now where you also feel very isolated, and you could be in this field for 20 years, right? You could be in the interpreting field for 20 years, or you could be in the field for 6 months. You're valid in how you feel. And it's important that you recognize where you're at and then figure out how to build a community of practice around you. And this is one potential solution. CORE is one potential way. I recognize it's very difficult to bring CORE to your state. Once I explain it, it is a lot. Our coordinators across the United States are what keep this program happening, basically, that they're the lifeblood of this entire program. It is very difficult to bring to your state. And there are other ways to do the things that I'm going to share with you today, on a more individual basis, that you can build out a community that can work with you. So if I can leave you with that, I hope that that's something that you, A, feel acknowledged and valid in your feeling of isolation, and two, that you feel like maybe you don't have CORE in your state, maybe you don't have a formal mentorship program, so to speak, but that you feel that there are people out there who have similar experiences, and then you can go out and find people who are looking for similar things. So these are the objectives. I'm not going to read to you, but essentially what I'm looking for today is for you all to consider, right, a community of practice, what that might look like, and how this could be potentially replicated in your state in whatever way that might be. Also, I'm looking for basically a programmatic structure that maybe you don't need the entire CORE program, but you can take bits and pieces that work for you. And then that third objective is reflecting on your own history and how your growth has gotten you to where you are, and how you can then give that back to the community. So those are the goals that we're going to be working with today. This is just a point of reference. This is going to show you where we either A, have a CORE chapter, which is in the orange bullets. I know it's pretty tough to tell. Yellow is where we have a lot of discussions happening, but it hasn't actually formally kicked off yet. Again, going back to, it takes a lot of work to get a CORE chapter up and running. So leave this call knowing today that potentially a CORE program might not ever make it to your state, but it might be something that you can learn from and then adapt or make it work for the community that you're within. The meaning of CORE. So CORE is an acronym. I feel like that's all we need in this field is more acronyms. But yeah, so it's Colleague Advancement, Outreach, Resources, and Ethics. So CORE. And basically that goal of colleague advancement is that we're right in that supportive mindset. We're looking to hear from everybody. Everyone has something to offer, and making sure that everyone feels that all, what is I think the saying is all tides raise ships, or something to that effect. So yes, we do love an acronym. It's true. We all have to work together in collaborative approach, because we're not going to get things accomplished in this field when we're all working in isolation alone. It's just not going to happen. We do have to work together, and we have to create a community. And that colleague advancement is so crucial, right? That's why it's literally C. Outreach, meaning that we're sharing that knowledge. So one of the things we're doing today, as I mentioned, is you're coming up with, 1 to 5 resources that you've used when you've been mentoring someone, or maybe when you've been mentored, that then you can then share out with this group of people. And those could be books, TED Talks, right? And that can be a shared resource hub. And that's what we're looking to do, is always share that knowledge. R for resources means we're just trying to equip interpreters with what it is that they need. So, as we all know, there's so many elements to being an interpreter. And I remember the first time I heard that idea of interpreters, specifically sign language interpreters, it makes sense, right? That we would always have a backpack. The reason why you would have a backpack instead of a purse is because trying to sign with one side like this is like super awkward, right? So it's important for sign language interpreters to have a backpack that's a lot easier, like a work backpack instead. That was a game changer for me, right? I didn't learn that until after I went to a couple jobs, and I was, oh my gosh, my spine hurts, right? Like I'm sitting here trying to like sign like this as I'm like leaving. And as I'm leaving this job, I'm like, oh gosh. And this interpreter's like, get a backpack. Like, what are you doing? So those simple things that are just very easy, but great, making sure interpreters have the literal appropriate equipment they need, but also like the metaphorical and the physical, um, all of the things that we need to do this job. And it varies based off of language. It varies based off of skill. It varies based off of where you live, if you're in a city, if you're in the suburbs, if you're out rural. So it's so important to recognize that everyone has different needs, but that we can all come together and share what those needs could potentially be, and then come up with solutions. E being ethics, right? So we're often working with a population that is, if you're not a native English speaking group here in America, oftentimes you are at a disadvantage. So if you're working with a group who is historically disadvantaged, right? I'm working with a group that's not only historically disadvantaged from a language perspective, but also from disability perspective. Um, there's so many layers to that. And so making sure that we are ethical in how we approach our work. And I do know that ethics runs the gamut, right? There's some people who sit very fine on this line that, I'm in and out and that's all I do and I don't get involved, to people who are super involved and know the deaf family's history and medical history, and they, da. My point being, this is the ethics, right? So what does ethics actually mean? How do we find a midline between we know everything to we punch a card, right? How do we find that interpreter sweet spot where we can really work with this community that is disadvantaged because they're not native speakers of English often? And how do we really make sure that we're facilitating that communication in a way where it's a win-win scenario for everybody in the room? So it's a delicate job, it's a delicate dance. And so we always have to be aware of those things. So that's the meaning behind core. And that's what we're looking for when we kind of emphasize, or I'm sorry, elaborate on each of those letters. So I mentioned before, you come into the field and you feel stuck, right? And I've made it this phenomena. So if it doesn't make sense to you, I apologize in advance. But the helicopter phenomena is essentially this, right? You've got the structure of core, which is coaches, who are typically people who have 30 years of experience. They sometimes often own contracts. They present at your local professional development workshops. These are the people that they know a lot, right? So those are your coaches for each team. And on this slide, you'll see there's a red, a green, and a blue team. So you'd have 2 coaches. You have 2 red, 2 green, 2 blue. And then underneath them, you have mentors and mentees who are paired 1-to-1. So for example, the red team would have 4 mentors and 4 mentees paired 1-to-1. Same thing with green and blue. And the goal of, you can see how all of the lines are drawn together, right? The point being is that those mentees often feel like everybody who has all of the knowledge and the institutional know-how is in that tiny little helicopter, and I'm trying to get in that helicopter. I'm trying to be in there with them and know what they do and know what they know and work where they work, right? It takes time to get there. That's the first thing I acknowledge. The second thing I have to acknowledge is that it is very difficult to get where they've gone, right? Um, it is very rare that I have had an experience with someone who's a coach who just kind of happenstance just became this like phenomena in our field. I'm sure with spoken language, there are people that you can think of who work for the UN, who work for international organizations, or for professional conferences that you typically go to or attend. And it's the same concept with sign language interpreting, is that we have people that we know their names, right? They're the big heavy hitter names, and we have so much respect for them, and they respect on their names. They deserve it, right? How did they get there? Who mentored them? And how do we make sure that that keeps getting passed down? That's where core comes in. So you're the person with all the respect on the name, and you're in the helicopter, and I want to be in the helicopter, right? So often mentors are on their way getting into the helicopter. They've got the certification, they have the licensing that they need, they've gone to the professional development, they have steady work, right? Mentees are fresh to the field and they're trying to figure it out. They're not certified yet. They don't have their licensing yet. They don't really know what to do. That mentor can help support them. And then the mentors can get support from the coaches. And you can see that there's a line drawn between each of those teams of the coaches. That's intentional because we want the coaches to all be communicating, because sometimes you've got folks who specialize in medical interpreting, legal interpreting, educational interpreting, and you have these different fields within our respective languages. And there are certain people who like, I don't touch legal. I don't do legal work because I don't know legalese, right? That's fine. But maybe this coach does. So if I have a mentor and mentee on my blue team that are both really interested in legal, but I don't know about legal, I'm going to say, you know what, guys, I don't know about this, but you know who does? This red team coach. And I'm going to send them over to the red team. So again, that's the description of the helicopter phenomena and the description of the actual program itself. Obviously, I told you before, I'm in Washington, D.C. So State of the Union, State of the Interpreters, same situation. Again, these are our mentees sitting here looking at a helicopter and going, I want to be in that helicopter, right? How do we get them? And how do we throw a rope down and get them climbing up the rope to get into the helicopter? How can we make the helicopter into a larger airplane, to an Airbus, to whatever it needs to be, right? That we can fit as many people in there and create that environment that is super collaborative and has a seat for everybody at the table, right? The entire purpose behind core is that, right? We're going to take the shore and we're going to take the helicopter, we're going to pull them in. That's core. Our goal is to make sure that those mentees who feel super isolated have people who are in their corner and are fighting for them and are ready to support them. So that's the whole intent of core, is to get folks together. So you can read through this slide. I can also talk you through it really quick. The main goal here being that mentorship is selfless giving. You are making sure that your field continues without you, right? Oftentimes, a lot of interpreters are super competitive and they want to keep their ongoing consistent work. That makes sense. Everyone's got to pay their bills. And how can we bring in someone? How can we, hey, clients, is it okay if I bring in a mentee with me so that they can get exposure? Because you don't know when you're going to be sick, right? Maybe you could bring in and refer that mentee. So it's making sure that people feel supported throughout all of life. And it's also important to acknowledge that outside of just interpreting, we're human beings, right? Times are hard. A lot of people are going through very, very devastating times. And it's important that we remember that we are human first, interpreter second. I do think it gets lost on all of us, that we tend to err towards, we're always thinking about interpreting, we're always thinking about our development, we're thinking about our craft, right? Because interpreting in itself is a craft. It's important to remember that when you're mentoring with people, that you look at the whole human, not just their skill and not what they bring to the table, but how are they as a human being doing? Oftentimes, I know with mentoring, one of the people that I really look up to says, it's important that you don't start off with saying, how are we going to take turns during this job and team this job? It's important you say, hey, what was the last movie you saw? What was the last vacation that you went on? Do you have a vacation planned for anytime soon? starting off those conversation with them something other than work and allowing people to people before you just put work ahead of everything else is so important, because it's really hard to team with someone and to have a connection with a colleague without having any sort of social understanding of each other. And so building that rapport is so important. You mentoring doesn't have to be a formalized structure, right? It can also be you show up to a job and you work together and you're able to bond. That in itself is worth something. I'm sure we've all been to jobs before where you've worked with someone, you thought, I could work with them again. That'd be really great. And then, you keep that going, right? And you would refer that person to future employers because you enjoyed working with them. Same concept with when you've got people that you've worked with and you're like, I don't need that energy in my life, right? Like that was great. I'm done here, right? So remembering what is the kind of interpreter that I'm showing up every day, and who am I being? And everyone has bad days. We get that, right? But how am I showing up when I am having a bad day? Do I take it out on my team? Do I take it out on my clients? How do I navigate that? And that's also part of this whole mentorship situation that I would say. Remember that mentees one day will become mentors. So show the kind of behavior that you're looking to see in your field. If you're looking to see people who are collaborative and supportive, well, then guess what? You've got to be collaborative and supportive. If you're tearing people down, if you are, criticizing people's skill left, right, and center, is that the kind of field that you want to create for the future? There's a time and a place for people to be critiquing folks, right? We are a skill-based practitioner field. And how are we having those conversations? Are those conversations constructive? Are those conversations one-on-one, or are we blasting people online, right? So consider how we're talking about each other and how we're talking about the work. This is so important because I think this this little picture says everything. Um, it goes both ways, right? So one of the things that I love about core is that with the coaches, right, you've got two of them, not just one. If you don't feel comfortable with one coach, you can go to this coach, right? Um, the mentors also have someone that's mentoring them, and the coaches are mentoring each other. So everyone is getting a taste of mentorship in that core model. Uh, we have evidence that shows through surveys that we've conducted that shows that mentors really do value having someone who is, supervising them, that's giving them the support that they need and the resources that they need when they're just stuck. Because sometimes a mentee will ask me a question, I go, you know what, I don't know. First things first, admit that you don't know. Don't sit here and play a game that like, oh, I know everything. You don't know everything. Just because you get the title of a mentor doesn't mean that I know everything and all bets are off, right? It's important that you say, A, I don't know. B, I got somebody who I can ask. And then C, if they don't know, I have a network of people that I can tap into. So that's one of the benefits of these mentors, is that oftentimes maybe they don't know, but maybe another mentor within their team knows, or guarantee you somebody within that core cycle is going to have an answer, or have a way to get to an answer, right? And so that, again, that's that collaborative relationship that we're looking for. And again, so that way everyone's benefiting from this program. We do provide a toolkit, which is a workbook, and I'm going to show you a picture of it soon, that I created back in 2020. It is way more sign language focused than it is spoken language focused, but I do think that there are some benefits that you can get out of there if you are a spoken language interpreter. It's available on Amazon. It's like $30. But the point being is that you can use that as a toolkit to work with your mentee, or mentees to work with their mentor, and coaches to work with their teams to say, hey, let's talk about this today, or this topic, or what have you. And so that's always beneficial, is to have resources and to have toolkits that you can whip out and say, hey, listen, we both bought this workbook. You and I can work through, this chapter together, or we can work through this example or scenario together. Because having that shared language of something that we can both talk about opens up for more dialogue. And that's what we're always looking for, because a lot of times mentors are like, I'm not really sure what I should say. Like, I don't really know what to do. Well, great. We have a core workbook for you. You can use that. That can be your jumping point. Speaking of jumping point, here we are. So that is the picture of the workbook right there with the two yellow column. that, like I said, I think Sean just shared the link. And yes, yeah, perfect. Thanks, Sean. Um, so, like I said, if you type in interpreters supporting interpreters, Amazon, it'll pop up. And that it again is very much core focused, but there's mentor philosophies, there's approaches to mentoring, there's topics within that workbook that could benefit you outside of this program. So I don't want to limit it to that program, but again, obviously I wrote that with the intent of core in mind. However, we've had people all across the US who have bought that workbook and have used it in one-on-one relationships. We've had ITP, interpreter training program professors who have also bought it and used it in their classroom. So it really is beneficial outside of just core. However, just remember it was built with core in mind. The next screenshot that you see is from the core website. So the core website is www.coreinterpreters.com. And if you check that website, we have a free resource page and it has everything from like ethical scenarios. So it could be situations like interpreting in business meetings, all the way to, yeah, thank you for sharing, to medical scenarios, to virtual interpreting. We also have a resume example on there because a lot of people come to the program that they want to join this program, but then their resumes look horrendous. So great. How can we push you to get you to a place where maybe your resume can be cleaned up a little bit, right? Like, let's make sure we don't have grammatical errors. Formatting looks appropriate. Make sure you make a PDF, right? Make sure you have a professional email. No, hottie baby 2122 at hotmail.com. If you're using Hotmail, maybe don't, because people don't use Hotmail anymore. But my point being is that it's important that you build up your professional portfolio, which is your resume, and also if you've made videos or you have live interpretation, that you can then share out with a potential employer or for a screening at an agency. And that way, people have access to what they need. There's other information on that website. It's all free. Our core team volunteered together just to put that together. So again, that's public knowledge. You can totally use it. So don't try to read the screen. It's too small. That the intent of this is just to show you what this looks like. So part of the core program, right, is we have mentors and mentees who are paired one-to-one. We have them in this situation for 6 months. They're mentoring together and they fill out a manifesto. The manifesto is basically an agreement between the mentor and the mentee. Instead of using the word contract, we said manifesto because it's both of them coming together to talk about how are we going to make this happen? How are we going to make sure that this next 6 months together, we have a shared common goal and we're both working together to make this happen? And how are we going to agree upon it? So the first 3 bullets that you can see, they're very, very small. The yellow ones are the mentee setting up goals. And we try to do SMART goals. So we're trying to do very specific, measurable, actionable, time-based, relevant skills that allow someone to set a goal that is achievable within 6 months. Now, oftentimes, mentees, what are they looking to do? They're entering a profession, so they're trying to become certified or have a license to work. That's a beautiful goal. How are we getting there? Because just because you want to pass a test, saying I want to pass a test is not enough. I need to know, what are you working on to get yourself to the point? What is the schedule that you are practicing to be ready for your in-person live exam? What are you doing to make sure that you have the ethics down that your respective organization requires from you in order to say that you know that what it means to be ethical? So those are the things that I'm looking for in those 3 bullet points. Also, is the mentee going to be the person that is setting up the schedule and asking the mentor, hey, these are the 3 dates that I have. Are you available? Right? So again, pushing both the mentor and mentee and having the onus on them to set up clear times where they're going to be meeting. Because without putting a pair of people together and saying, go work, it's not helpful, right? You have to have intentional relationship building that's built into that. And that's part of what that is setting a goal for those mentees. Now, the 3 bullets on the other side are for both the mentor and mentee, going back to what I was just saying, talking about how they intend to work together for the next 6 months. So an example of this could be, oftentimes mentors are people who are in the stage of life where they're working professionals, but they also have families. So it's very difficult for them to create time at night to meet with someone. So maybe night is not good. Maybe the weekend is better for them, right? Because after they've worked all day, they got to come home and take care of their kids. They're like, I don't have time to do this mentorship thing, but I can do it maybe on the weekend, on a Sunday before my kids wake up, or what have you. So having that dialogue up front, also saying like, hey, listen, I hate phone calls. Can you not call me? Can we just like text, and then we'll like set up a Zoom, or we'll set up a FaceTime that we can have a conversation. So all of that dialogue happens right at the beginning of core. And the goal, right, is that we can get both the mentor and a mentee in a place where they're having open dialogue, but they're also able to express what they need, and without judgment, right? It's hey, listen, if you hate phone calls, you hate phone calls, right? Like lay it out and make sure it's clear, so that later if your mentee calls you on a Thursday and you're like frustrated, the mentee can be like, oh right, I remember you don't like phone calls. You would like a text. Got it. Right? So opening up that dialogue is super important. And then you can see there that we have a signature line, because we do expect mentors and mentees to follow through with this, right? We want them to commit to doing this. This manifesto gets submitted to both of the coaches for your team. The coaches then look at this manifesto and go, are there SMART goals, right? Are they measurable? Do we actually have the ability to achieve this? And they're trying to say, we're going to check in on you for the next 6 months and make sure, are you doing okay? How is this going, right? The structure of the program with the coaches allows for mentors who are not sure what to do, mentees who are maybe potentially like, this mentor and I, we're struggling with like this, and this. Can I go to my coach? Yeah, go to your coach, right? It allows for mentees to have more than one mentor in this process. And we also recognize that because we're providing a structure, we're giving you a skeleton to this. We're not telling you this is how you can mentor. You can only use this model at this time for this like that's just not how mentoring works. It's so important to recognize that everyone brings something different to the table, and each person individually contributes to this program and makes this program the magic that it is. The secret sauce of this program is really the people who are involved. And so recognizing that not everyone's the same person, right? Everyone has something to offer. And so what I experienced coming into the field was very like dog eat dog, who's the biggest, fish in the pond, what have you. And it's important that we aim for a shift in all of our interpreting field, that we're welcoming people and that we're supporting people. That's literally why the mission statement is interpreters supporting interpreters, because we're trying to give that support. Don't try to read the slide. This is just giving you a visual breakdown of what's happening. So you have a 6-month program, as I've already stated. That first month, it's so important that you do the manifesto and that you meet with the coaches. We have a kickoff event where we have everybody in the entire cycle. So blue team, green team, red team, everybody's there together. So you're talking about, 40 people. And we're going through slides explaining the program, making sure everyone's on the same page, right? We all have the same starting point. And we've already paired mentors and mentees together, and they're already on teams. And so during kickoff, we give, red team has a time when they're together, blue, green, same thing. And then at the very end, we give our mentors and mentees an hour to look at that manifesto that I've already shared with you all and go through that manifesto together to say, how are we going to work together? And the coaches are available to come up to pairs and say, hey, how's it coming along? Do you need support? Do you need to know how to write a SMART goal? Do you need some resources? And that's a time that you can get that in. And it's so crucial for getting people started off on the right foot. So that's the first month. The second month, again, is talking about those skills that we set back with the manifesto and making sure that mentors and mentees are continuously working together. We normally host a workshop in that first month where people can earn professional credits for the time that they are in those workshops. And what's happening during that time is the coaches are presenting on specific topics. So the coaches will present on like interpersonal skills, being introspective, talking about why is it that I am an interpreter and what is my impact? And that's something else that I have on the slide later on. because I think it's important that we regularly, as interpreters, consider, why am I in this field and what am I doing this for? And I don't even know if that's true just for interpreting. I think that's true for everything in life, right? So what are your values, and how are your values actually aligning with your life? Because life will go, right? The time will pass. What's going to happen during that time? And I think it's important that we, as humans, assess that and go, am I living where I want to live, right? Am I doing the things that I want to do, that I care about, right? And yes, you do have to pay your bills. Yes, you have to deal with the situations in life that are coming at you. And you're a human being and you deserve to live your life, right? So, what is it that you value and how are you assessing that? Sorry, that was a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's super important. Again, human first, right? Yeah, so core event, that's talking about introspection. That third month is still skill development. We're exchanging videos at this point, exchanging interpretations, making sure that mentors and mentees are seeing each other's work. And in this time frame, we ask that folks do a minimum of 2 pro bono jobs. So they're giving back to the community that we're serving. So it could be the deaf community, it could be the Spanish speaking community, it could be um, whatever community is that you're typically interpreting within, giving back specifically to them. So it could be a community led organization, it could be a birthday party, it could be a wedding, it could be all kinds of things. The main goal is that mentors and mentees are working together, and that mentees are sitting in the hot seat, that they are experiencing what it's like to be interpreting, and that mentor is sitting with them, providing them that extra push and support that they need to be successful at that pro bono job. So by this time, I would say by month 3, most mentor mentee pairs have probably already completed a pro bono job. And if not, the people who are coordinating the program for that entire cycle will send out an email and say, hey, mentors and mentees, get a pro bono job in, right? So they're doing that. And then in that same month, we also have another workshop. That workshop is typically about how to team with an interpreter. So it's all well and good if you individually know how to interpret, but how are you working with your colleagues? And I think that's so crucial and often missed in our field. So we use that time to really talk about that. The fourth month is, again, we're still talking about skill development, but now what we're going to do, and mentors and mentees, like I said, are meeting this entire time. They have their own schedule that they're doing because we believe adults should work autonomously, do your thing, please. So they're doing their own thing, and we're providing these workshops in real time. And so we normally do a happy hour in that fourth month, which allows everyone to socialize. Remember, interpreter is second and human is first. So we're trying to get people together to have a taco night, to go out to a local brewery, get together and not just talk about work, socialize outside of work, because you might end up someday, again, there's 40 people here who are from your community. You're probably going to team with one of these people. So it's really nice to have a dialogue with someone and bond with somebody about something other than just work. So that's really cool. The fifth month, again, we're still talking about progression of skill. Mentees and mentors are still working together. That second pro bono job is hopefully finished. Some mentee pairs will actually do more than 2 pro bono jobs, which is actually really cool. And I'll show you stats in a second to back that up. But essentially, they're able to continuously work together. And right before that month 6, which is our last month of core, in month 5, we have a panel day where we have all of the coaches. So remember, there's 2 coaches per team. They sit on a panel, and the coordinators for that state will collect questions regarding, how do I run a business, taxes with freelancing. Oh my goodness, right? Interpreting in medical scenarios. What is a write-off? What's not a write-off? What are the workshops that you attend in order to become a legal interpreter or to become a medical interpreter? And so that panel day is a time for essentially our mentors and mentees to just basically fire off questions based on these different categories and say to the coaches, what do you know? Pass your institutional knowledge down to me so that I can then spread it around. And so that's the goal, is that we're really trying to crack open that egg and get all of that information from these people who know so much about our field, and we all really value their knowledge. And then the last month is completion event, and that's where we all come together. I'll show you the slide at the end or soon. That is the last slide that we have that talks about the stats of that cycle. So again, the cycle is 6 months, and you have all of these people working together. We have all of the mentees count the pro bono jobs that they've done, and we tally those up. We talk about the workshops that we've done, and we take pictures during all of those workshops throughout the month. So that's really cool. And at the happy hour, so we get to share those pictures. And it's really just a time to come together and go, awesome. We did 6 months together, right? Mentors and mentees have a conversation. Do you want to keep working together professionally? Do you want to go your own separate ways? Are we just colleagues, and we say we're colleagues, we'll team together when we will. What does it look like going forward? And then now that we started that manifesto right in the beginning, those mentees now are able to set up SMART goals for themselves going forward. And the hope is that mentors and mentees do keep contact with each other, but that they also have the opportunity to set goals for themselves, and how are they going to keep bettering themselves, because skill-based practitioner field, we have to continuously make ourselves better. So that right there is your 6-month cycle of core. That's the program. This is really cool. And like I said previously, this is one of the things that we'll show at the end of kickoff, where we have everyone together after the 6 months is over. And we've had 24 cycles across multiple states that have finished. So those are all 6-month cycles. Total pro bono hours done over 1,000. We're really proud of that. That's great. We've had a lot of coaches, a lot of mentor-mentee pairs. So that's 181 times 2. I don't do math, so someone else figure that out. Lots of workshops that we've hosted, and lots of CEU opportunities. And CEUs, continuing education units, are great for mentors to get the benefit of being in the program. While we don't pay the mentors, we're able to say, here's some CEUs because you have to keep up your licensure, right? So it's important that we are able to support them in that way. We did conduct a nationwide survey back in 2022, and we got 90 responses, which was really great. And this, like I said, is across multiple states. And so a lot of our mentees said that this was a beneficial program for them, and they would recommend it to other folks, which I thought was great. That 91% is just the mentees who responded that, they felt like we pushed them forward towards becoming certified, which, like I said previously, is normally a goal in their manifesto when they come into core. And a lot of people said, hey, I would say that this program is helpful. So I always tell people core is not perfect, but something is better than nothing, right? So that's the mindset that I have at this. We will never be perfect. I'm a human being with a life outside of this. I run core on the side. It is not my main source of income at all. It's actually not a source of income. It is a passion project. I always say to people, it's altruistic means with no monetary gain, right? I'm not looking here to spend a penny off of this, or to spend a penny off of this rather. I'm looking to really support my field, because I remember being isolated, and it's a terrible feeling. So seeing that 98% of people would say this is a helpful program is a relief to me as someone who founded the program, but also it tells me that we're doing good work. These are a couple of the quotes that we get from folks after they're done with core. In that last 6 months, they finish. We send out a survey to say, hey, tell us about your experience. Was this helpful for you? Did you feel that this gave you what you needed? And there's some people, right? It's the human bell curve. There's some people that people rock it. And then there's other people, it's like, man, it was good. And then there's other people who just like, it was a terrible experience. That is unavoidable. Anytime that you're talking about dealing with people, you're going to have the human bell curve. So just know that that's what's going to happen, and don't be discouraged, right? If you're considering setting up a mentorship program, the number one thing I would say is we take the feedback that is critiquing so much more seriously than we take the feedback where people are saying, I love it. And oftentimes, right, you're going to hear from the people who complain more than you're going to hear from the people who say it was a great experience. So if I can encourage you, if you're thinking about setting up a mentorship program, or you're seeing core and you're thinking, wow, this is something that's beneficial, remember that is that you're dealing with people, and humans are going to human, and that's okay, and it's not going to be a great fit for everybody. And you have to just be able to sleep at night and know I did my best. I'm trying to provide something where I saw nothing. And that is honestly, at the end of the day, sometimes all you can do. Going back to talking about a privileged role, and the fact that we're working with often a group of people who are not native speakers of English. I think that this right here is the most important questions that we should be asking ourselves as we navigate our entire career. I don't think this is something that you consider these 3 questions in a silo at the beginning of your career. I think it's important to regularly ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why did I want to do this? How have I benefited from other people investing in me? And then how can I invest in others? Right. So it's so crucial that we all acknowledge where we came from, how we got here, and then how can we give it back? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we will all be replaced. The community that has this disadvantage from not being able to speak English, oftentimes will be put in situations that are horrendous. We witness some terrible things. We witness some beautiful things, right? We have the privilege to be in that role. And I think it's important that we're constantly giving ourselves a gut check, right? Like, why are we doing this? How can we give back? And how can we make sure that when I'm not here, who's going to replace me? That's the number one question that I think a lot of people don't ask is, and I don't want to be morbid about it, but you will not be interpreting forever, right? We're all human beings. The one thing that is true about all of us is one day we will all perish. So if we will all perish, who is coming behind you? And how are you investing in that next generation that's coming behind you? Um, it is hard to get into this field. Interpreting is hard. How can we make it less of a burden on that next generation? So going back to community of practice, and this is one of the things I shared at the beginning, we all have something to contribute here. Um, I'm going to share with you all a link soon where, remember, I was asking you at the beginning, or kind of giving you a little bit of like a behind the curtain. Um, Sharing resources is one of the best things you can do, especially for a field that is predominantly freelancers. So I'm going to share a link soon that is a place where we can all just add links that have been helpful for us, whether it's been when we've been mentored, or when we were getting started in the field, or something that we regularly use. One of the things that I love that people shared with me is a mentorship book that I have absolutely loved. And it's something that I regularly lean on when I feel like I'm not really sure what would someone do in this scenario. I think it's called Mentoring 101, and it's just so basic, but it's like I should just go there, right? There are some TED Talks that are wonderful TED Talks. There's so much information and content out on the internet where people have just shared their brains because they care, and they're so great at what it is that they do, and they're providing this information for free. So adding those links is super helpful, and having them all in one place, I just think is really beneficial. So with that being said, we're going to have a little community of practice amongst ourselves here. And this is the link. I'm probably going to have Sean. There we go. Sean just shared it. And you can just copy and paste that link into your browser. And you'll see in the link itself that it has like example one at the top, right? And then it has, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. So just pick it's Google Drive. So just make sure that you pick one that someone else is not on actively right now. And in that link, you can just share a couple resources that you have found beneficial for yourself. And then that will be shared out with this larger group that's here with us today. And then with that, while you're working on that, actually, we can share that out. Or I think because of timing, we'll probably have to take questions now. So I will stop talking, and I might also stop sharing. And I'll ask if anyone has questions about core, anything that could be beneficial that I might be able to share with you, or point you in the direction of a resource that would be beneficial, because we have just enough time to take. I don't know. It depends on your question. I don't know how much time we'll have. So any questions, I guess is what I'll say. And I know there's a little bit of a delay because I've seen them coming through. So I'll wait for a couple minutes too. And you also might be looking at that link. So if you're doing both, I apologize in advance. Oh, great. Okay. Oh, Izzy, I just saw this. Yeah. It's not morbid at all to acknowledge that other generations of interpreters will carry on when we can't. Love the reality check. Yeah. I agree with you, Izzy. I think it's so important that people consider that and think about this group of people that I'm working with will continue beyond me, right? I mean, they will also pass, which is also sad. Everyone's, that's sad. And this is part of life. So when we pass, when they need support, I mean, it's a never ending cycle. This is how life works. So it's important to acknowledge that that will happen. And how are we investing back with that next generation? Question: how do you combat the miles of some team interpreters who treat jobs kinds as just a paycheck? Right. So, great question, Izzy. Here's the thing: you're not going to get around people treating our job as just check in, check out. I think a lot of folks they range on that. Remember, we talked about ethics at the beginning. That you've got some people who are just they stamp in and out. They're like, I'm good, I'm done. And then you have people who are like so invested in like these people's lives that they know their great grandmothers and their medical history and what medications they're taking. And I would say that there's a time and place for the whole range, right? Um, it is so important that as interpreters, we go back to asking ourselves that question of what it means to be in a privileged role as an interpreter. I think a lot of folks don't do that. A lot of people do not give themselves a gut check and consider what is my role in all of this. And folks who tend to lean towards this is a paycheck for me, um, I have noticed often have a lot going on in their own personal life. And so, how can we support that person and be a good team to them on the job? I would say ask them about their life. I would say the people who tend to treat interpreting as a paycheck and they stamp in and stamp out are often folks who have so much else going on in life that they can't invest in doing other things, right? They can't do pro bono work. Maybe they're the primary breadwinner for their family, and so they need the funds. Um, so I think acknowledging that, and the only way you can acknowledge those things is if you know that person. So having the dialogue, I think, is crucial. But that's how I would say that is, open up with questions and then and that means you have to arrive to your jobs early to have those conversations. Yeah, so hopefully that answers that. Any other questions? It could be about core or interpreting, by the way. Empathy, yeah. Well, empathy is crucial. Yeah, I think a lot of us lack it. So, and I need to work on my empathy too. So, as someone who's given a lot to my field, well, that's my perspective, but I feel like I've done a lot in my field. And so when I see folks who don't necessarily do as much, sometimes it's like, I am working my tail off over here. Why are you not too? And you have to realize that they just maybe don't have the ability, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It just means that that's just they're not in the time or the space or the season of their life to do that. And maybe one day they will. So, I don't see any other questions, so we might be good, which means I did this in less than an hour, which is super impressive for me. Yay, go team.
That was great. Thank you so much, Caitlin.
Yeah, of
I
course.
did just want to just let you know the link that was provided, it was view only, so we weren't able to add stuff to the resource. But to those that are viewing this, we will share the
Yeah.
link with edit access to it, so that you guys can be able to share that information. And yes, CEUs were provided for this webinar. And we will be sending out an email with a survey for you to fill out, and then we'll be able to provide you some of those CEUs. Um, and it looks like we actually have one more question if you have a second. It from
Yeah.
Katrina. She says, "Do you screen your mentors?"
Oh, yeah. Great question, Katrina. Thanks for asking. So yes, we have ways of doing things that vary based on state. First things first is mentors must have a certification. That's the bare minimum. So that right there means they've gone through a screening, which is the first thing. The second thing I would say is often our coaches, like I said, there's typically anywhere from each cycle, there could be 4 coaches all the way to 8, depending on how many teams we have and how many people are in each cycle. Um, and so oftentimes the coaches know who the mentors are because it's happening within that locality, which means everybody knows each other. Like you've either teamed or you've been at a workshop together or you know each other. If we don't know someone, you can basically look at their resume and you know what's going on. We have mentors fill out, they send in their resume, but they also fill out a questionnaire. And that also, you can kind of tell based on looking at all of that information what kind of caliber of a mentor that you're dealing with. Um, and we actually do the same thing for mentees too, because we've had some folks who have signed up to be a mentee, and it's like, well, really, you're a better fit for a mentor. Like, you're already certified and you have all of this experience. So sometimes people feel like they can't mentor. And that's another thing that we try to do with Core is not only are we building the pipeline for mentees, but we're building the pipeline for mentors, right? Because those mentees will become mentors, but also sometimes people could mentor and they're just like, I'm not sure. And it's like, no, you could do this. Like, go, go, go. And you have coaches to support you. So hopefully that answers your question.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Um, I really enjoyed the webinar myself. I know if I've heard it before at another conference, but I just feel like I always pick up little things that I didn't notice the first time around. So I just want to encourage everybody to check out the book. You can get it on Amazon, and the proceeds just go to help the program, to help other new interpreters get into the field. It is a great book. I personally recommend it. It has a really great resources in there, and it just kind of helps you customize it to yourself. It's not rigid in that sense, which is kind of nice, but it gives you something to work with to get started. And I would say, I know a lot of us, we're always like, how do I even start? It's so overwhelming. So I do appreciate you doing the grunt work and kind of getting that together for us so that we can kind of just take the ball and run with it. And
Yeah.
we see everybody's thanking you as well for that. Um, and so we encourage you guys to also check out her website if you are interested in trying to do core interpreting, doing a program like that in your area. Please reach out to Caitlin and her team, and they'll help you get set up in your state or your area. I can tell you here, I'm in Northeast Florida. We've been doing it for several years now. Very good results. We're very happy with it. So that's something I'm going to continue to support myself as well. And we want to encourage everybody here to feel free to check out our website as well, hellointerpreters.com. Check out coreinterpreters.com as well. And we're all here just to support one another, help each other to get to where we need to go in life. And I did appreciate Caitlin's point about we're going to be passing on soon, and being able to leave something for the next generation, I think, is so important. And what a better what a great legacy to leave behind for the next generation of interpreters and translators than our experience that we've worked so hard and helping them to provide a better service to the people that we love and the people that we serve. So
Yeah.
thank you guys so much. Thank you, Caitlin. And again, we'll follow up with an email for the surveys and to get you guys your CEUs for that, for those that attended. All right.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, guys. And thank you for all the comments. So sweet. Have a good one. Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.